Harihi Om Sadashivasamarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Parampara Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yat Kripatamaham Vande Paramananda Madhavam. Om. Welcome to the Bhagavad Gita class. My throat is a little doing karakara. If in case my voice is a little odd, please excuse me. The place where we are in is with respect to pursuing what we have done so far. Just let us take a quick look at where we are. We started with the Dhyana Shloka, then moved on to Shankara Bhashyam. We explored Shankara Bhashyam, where he established as to why this Bhashyam has been written. The key points were because of the adharma growing up in the society, Lord Krishna took birth to Vasudeva and Devaki. And then he preached the Bhagavad Gita for the purpose of the world to Arjuna. If you remember, he used the word Arjuna Nimitti Kritya. Taking Arjuna as the cause, he preached the world about the Karma Yoga, about the Bhakti Yoga, and all the Upanishadic concepts, and eventually the Jnana Yoga. He even touches upon the Raja Yoga in chapter 6 for that matter. So, this is the reason that the Bhagavad Gita was created in the first place. There have been several commentaries that have been written on Bhagavad Gita, and there are some which are extremely opposite to the true value that has been imparted in Bhagavad Gita. In order to correct it, he, means Shankaracharya, stepped up to communicate the true essence of Bhagavad Gita through this bhashyam. There are several bhashyams, but Shankaracharya's bhashyam stands as a pinnacle in most of the Vedantic schools even today. Even the Dvaita Parampara, they take a look at Shankaracharya's bhashyam together with Ramanuja's bhashyam or Sri Bhattar's bhashyam and so on. So there are several other bhashyams, but one which has gained a lot of prominence, a lot of fame, and something that really gives a challenging content is Shankara Bhashyam. Shankara's Bhashyam is also a little cryptic. So there are several other authors who have written tikas and tipnis on Shankara Bhashyam for us to understand the true essence of Bhagavad Gita. This has been traditionally passed on, and we are coming from a tradition where we have learned it with a lot of references, lot of discussions, and lot of analysis. In this class, we are going to try to present it. After completing that, we went on to the first shloka, and now we are in the second shloka. The shloka goes like this. Sanjaya Uvacha Drishtva tu Pandavanekam Vyudam Duryodhanastada Acharyamupasangamya Raja Vachanam Abravit. So we had seen this. Drishtva, after seeing, tu is and, Pandava Anikam, the forces of Pandavas established in a viewdom. We looked into the term viewdom, and we also saw what are all the different kinds of viewdom that was there in the ancient warfare. Duryodhanaha tada, thereupon, tada is there upon Duryodhana, the king Duryodhana or the crown prince Duryodhana, Acharyam upasangamya. Acharya is Dronacharya, upasangamya is approaching. After approaching, here the Raja refers to Duryodhan. Vachanam abravit. Vachanam is the words that were spoken. Abravit is spoke. So basically, in this shloka, Bhagavad Gita says that Sanjay observed that Duryodhan, after taking a look at the Pandavas' formations, approached the Acharya, his guru, Dronacharya, and spoke the following. In this context, we were looking at the Vyudam, and now we took a brief look at Dharma. And it raised a lot of questions. So today, we will try to take a little more understanding of Dharma before we proceed. The root for Dharma is from the word or the sound or the dhatu called as dhr. Dhr means something that which upholds, sustains, or supports. That which is the base is dhr. So we can talk of gravity, solar system, galaxies, the law of the nature, the duties and responsibilities, and so on. So anything that supports anything is a dharma. So now let us try to understand it pictorially so that the doubts that we had seen in our last class can be addressed much more clearly. Dharma is that which supports. The support is more conceptual in nature. The Sanatana Dharma is that supreme Dharma which enables such a support. So, Sanatana Dharma is a manifested form of Dharma. And what it means is this Dharma is permanent, eternal, ancient, everlasting. These are all the meaning of the term Sanatana. So something which is eternal, permanent, that is what is called as Sanatana Dharma. Now, the Sanatana Dharma can be defined as something very conceptually as the law of the nature, the days and nights, the weather, gravity, creation, death and destruction, expansion, all these things. We know that this universe continues to expand. So all these things are part of this supreme eternal dharma. Then, if you come down, in terms of our life, we have mutual respect, sharing, valuing others, truthfulness, patience, gratitude, wisdom, forgiveness, right? Sarvatma bhavam. These are all the things which are the basis for this Sanatana Dharma. Yet again, if you pay close attention, anything, if I say forgiveness, right? If a person is repeatedly doing the same error, it is not forgiveness that matters. It is the punishment that is required there, right? So forgiveness, or you take sarvatma bhavam, the same thing. There are places where this concept of goodness, this concept of dharma has to be applied with respect to a context. Otherwise, it will go out of place, right? Otherwise, it will not be dharma. So dharma becomes more subjective or more related to a specific situation when it is expressed. That is why Sanatana Dharma has been held as a concept which is not completely expressed. It is understood, it is self-revealing to all, it is based on these, but it cannot be defined to be these. On the other hand, the adharma is cruelty, falsehood, arrogance, impatience, selfishness, resentment. These could be again treated with the same concept. It is conceptual in nature, but it is not absolute. And that is the reason why they are more specific or in relation to something than independent by itself. The base is independent, and that independent base cannot be expressed. If it is expressed, then it will come into the same opinion. It can be right or it can be wrong based on the situation. It can be argued on both sides. Now, this law of the nature is handled by devatas. We introduce the devatas here. And the mutual respect or the life values are handled by humans. Okay. The core of dharma as well as adharma is self-revealing. It cannot be defined in logical terms when it comes to this. This human being is swatantraha. The sutra itself says swatantraha karta, which means this karta has a freedom of choice, but this karta is limited by constraints. We call this constraints to be desa kala vastu. And in our tradition, we also include jnanam. There are several expansions to this base. Desam means place, kalam means time, vastu means property. This book is black in color. This pen is white in color. This white in color becomes a property. So it is limited by the property. If it is white in color, then it is not black. Right? So that limitation. There is a constraint based on the property. It is a liquid, which means it is not a gas. Sorry, it is not a solid. It is not an air kind of a stuff. So it is everything that you think of is limited by these three things, desam, kalam, and vastu. As I said, in our tradition, we also include jnanam, which is knowledge about something, right? Or ignorance about something. That is what is the jnanam aspect of it. There are other traditions which include shariram, kosham, avastatrayam, right? Uh, ayu, right? Life, then vittam, money, bhayam, various things. But all of these can be accommodated within the desakala vastu. All right, so that is the prime thing actually. So you put it at desakala vastu, it is kind of at a higher level, but you can go down and you can call out any number of constraints that we have as a human being. So within this constraint, the human called as who is swatantraha works on the self-revealing aspect of dharma. But because the jnanam has also been included, there is an attached ignorance, and so there are various written and unwritten laws that define the right and the wrong. That is the place the dharma and adharma that we commonly use comes into picture. So, recapping, dharma is that which supports, which means if dharma is gone, the support is gone. This entire existence will fail, collapse. That is the core of dharma. That is the extent to which we put dharma as, and that is why dharma is given the swarup of God itself. Right? God is dharma. Once when we were in Vishnu Sahasranama, we have seen the nama, right, which is based on dharma being God. Several namas are there. But when it comes to Sanatana Dharma, what we are talking about is expressions of how dharma manifests. That is what is called as Sanatana Dharma. And that is again at a conceptual nature. At a Sanatana Dharma, there is no duality. There is nothing called as dharma and adharma. It is purely Sanatana Dharma. something that which is permanent, eternal, ancient, or everlasting. But when it comes down to expressions, right, some kind of rules or norms kind of a stuff, then it comes into rights and wrongs. We have treaties, we have laws, we have Shastra, which defines this is what is the Dharma, and so. Okay, so when you look at it from the right and wrong, Dharma, Adharma point of view, you are talking about specific definitions of Dharma and Adharma, which brings about a vivekam when jnanam becomes the challenge or constraint in identifying or in associating with the self-revealing concepts. So this is a guide, and this is also called as dharma because they also support. In Sanskrit, it is not like English, where an object is given a name. In Sanskrit, it is the property which is defined, and the way the property is placed into a situation, it gives or it becomes a pointer to an object. For example, a Brahman who is considered to be reborn, right, is also called as Dvija, which means a person who has studied. We spoke about Dvijaha as, Vedam Patanat Dvijaha Bhavati, right? We have seen this earlier. This concept of being reborn is applicable to human beings. And it is also applicable to the teeth, the tooth fairy, right? So here we are talking in terms of both of them being Dvijaha because they both have the property called as twice born. Similarly, dharma is something that upholds. So anything that upholds can be called as a dharma. And that is why all the treaties and other things are also called as dharma, leading to a little bit of confusion because we are trying to understand Sanskrit from the point of view of English. That is the mistake. It is not Sanskrit as a language is having a deficiency. It is just that we are misunderstanding and trying to objectify something which is not an object. It is a concept, right? So that is the place where we are. Let us take a quick look at various other aspects which are called as dharma. Religion. Religion is called as dharma by several people, and it has just picked up. The concept of a religion by itself is not Vedic in nature. The Jain Dharma, Sikh Dharma, they started using the term dharma to denote a religion. Islamic Dharma, Isai Dharma, and so on. If you pay closer attention, the Jain Dharma or Sikh Dharma or Buddha Dharma, they have somehow got a basis on our Shrutis and Smrutis, on our Veda or the Smrutis. Right? So they say that the ending of Sikh, Guru Granth Sahib, it comes with an appreciation to Ram. I have not read it, but I have heard of it. So I'm just sharing that. Right? So here we are talking in terms of, and even if you look at Buddha Dharma, there are lots of things. Dhyanam, that which they practice so much, is basically from our Shrutis and Smrutis. So we are really talking in terms of they having a root in this scriptures. Hindu Dharma is a little complex. If you take a look at it, there are several sects like Shaivism, Vaishnavism, Shaktam, etc. Now, to classify Hindu as a dharma in the context of a religion is considered to be a misnomer. There is even a Supreme Court case where they have declared it to be a way of life, not necessarily a religion. Because Hindu as a dharma is not based on a specific written or an ideological person. The Islamic Dharma and Isai Dharma, they are religions that have root to the Abrahamic faith and they follow prescribed practices, right? This is based on their specific text or their specific identity, whether you call the uh, Messiah or whether you call the God, right? But there is a specific book, right, a Quran or a Bible, which is the basis of their life. They are all called as dharam with the same concept because it upholds the value as established by that spiritual leader or by the text that they embrace. Right. So because it upholds them, it can be called as dharam. And hence it became dharam, as simple as that. So the core concept is dharam is something that which upholds. Sanatana Dharma is the abstract or a conceptual aspect of actions that drive upholding of the of anything for that matter, right? So that is called as Sanatan Dharma. Again, there are no definitions that should be attributed to the Sanatan Dharma. I don't think there is any text that says that this is what is Sanatan Dharma. Go into any of them. There is one place which is an exception, if I remember correctly. In Manusmriti, it declares that this is Sanatan Dharma. The the concept there is they are not saying that they are going to define whatever has been defined below is Sanatan Dharma, right? They are saying it the other way around. That which has been defined is Sanatanam, right? That is the way that it should be read, right? So there is no place where Sanatana Dharma has been defined, because if it is defined, then it falls into the definitions of right and wrong. It falls into the law. It falls into the treaties, agreements, and so on. So we need to understand that the definition of right and wrong is hierarchically below the Sanatana Dharma, and they are something that have been defined with respect to something. Examples can be seen here. Yeah, I have switched the I have switched the slides, but I'll go into this first. So let us take a look at dharma versus adharma, the concept of right versus wrong. Through the practice of dharma and adharma, one realizes Sanatana Dharma. That is the first thing. The eternal dharma, as well as the eternal truth, cannot be defined, because anything that is defined becomes objectified. And anything which is objectified is subject to opinion. And there is a Shastra or there is a famous, kind of a Shloka which goes like this: Munerapi vanastasya swakurmani karmani kurvatah utpatyante traya pakshaha mitraha ari udasinah. This person, Muni, is in in a forest, living all by himself, totally not disturbing or coming into anybody's life or disturbing anybody. Even for such a person, there will be three kinds of opinions that will be found. One is Mitra, which is friendly, appreciative. Another is Ari, which is enemy-like, which is opposing to that concept. And the last one is Udasinaha, who is indifferent towards it. He doesn't care either way. So as soon as you objectify something, it will fall within these three types. There will be people who will say that is right, there will be people who say it is wrong, and there will be people who will say, I don't care. So when we talk of the eternal truth, the absolute dharma, or the Sanatana Dharma, we need to understand that it is beyond the right and wrong, and it is self-revealing in nature. It is Swayam Jyoti. All religions, including Hinduism, have prescribed practices. Those practices are also called as dharma, right? Because those practices upholds the value of that aspect, whether you call it Hinduism or whether you call it Kul or whatever the name that you may give, but it upholds it, and hence they are also called as Dharma. Dharma in the context of right and wrong is defined for all segments of life experiences in Shruti and Smruti. We will get into that. But the intent here is to say that, that is why I said the slide was a little swapped. We will take a look at all the kinds of dharma that I have just, in a hurry, I have just pulled it together. It is not all, but some of them. With respect to my knowledge, I want to admit that it is limited with respect to other religions. So if I have said anything wrong about other religions, or if I have declared something incorrect about them, please uh, accept my apology. My intent here is to talk about the term dharma, not about any religion. What I have given, or what I'm going to be giving you now, is some examples only. But remember, every concept that you can think of will have a dharma associated with it. And you may find the references in some or the other text, but I'm sure it will be there. Now, the law of the land is also another expression of dharma. Whatever the CRPC or IPC, whichever has been changed, whatever it is all part of dharma. It can also be called as dharma. Adharma, on the other hand, is generally derived. There are some specific texts which speaks to some of the adharmas, but dharma, once you identify it, will naturally tell you what is adharma. That is why there is a sutra, right, where it says it is athato dharma jigyasa. But in Sanskrit, they add an S to it to say that it is also adharma jigyasa. This is the place from where you can learn both about dharma as well as about the adharma. So going into some of the examples, from human point of view, there are indriya dharma. They are chakshu dharma, shravana dharma, vak dharma, sparsha dharma, and mano dharma. Right? This is something that says this is the right thing to do with respect to the indriyas, with respect to the seeing. What is the right seeing versus wrong seeing? What is the right listening versus the wrong listening? What is right way of speaking versus the wrong way of speaking? So there are shastras which define and which educate. This used to be part of the core Vedantic studies, or the schools, Vedic schools, but unfortunately during Lord Macaulay's time, they were all destroyed. Right. So today we hardly have any Vedic school, and even there they talk about the Parini Sutra, memorizing it, and so on and so forth. It is more of Karma Kanda oriented, not traditional Vedic schools where the moral principles are taught. In India, they started with something called as moral sciences in the schools, but it was just a time pass, right? It was just dying. But these are all core values that needs to be instilled into the society, and we should speak about them. With respect to social guidelines, we have Varnashrama Dharma, right? If you person or a person belonging to this varna in this ashrama must do these things. That kind of a definition as to what all the things that should be done. And that also has sub-classifications like Vaidika Dharma, right? So the priest, what is the dharma for the priest? Acharya Dharma or Guru Dharma, right? The teacher's Dharma, Shishya Dharma, Kshatriya Dharma, Vaishya Dharma, Shudra Dharma, Yati Dharma. Yati Dharma is for sannyasis. What is the dharma of the sannyasi? Or Yuddha Dharma, Raja Dharma, Vritti, or Karma Dharma. Right. So it is called as Vritti because it is progressive in nature, but it is also called as Karma Dharma. All right. Then why I have repeated that, I don't know. Then food habits. This is Ahara Dharma. right? In terms of self-control, these are all the kind of dharma was the intent, I think. Right. For time, there is a yuga dharma. For lineage, we have kula dharma. For health and medicine, we have Vaidika dharma. Right. Vaidhyaka, actually, that was wrong mention here. Vaidikam is those who practice Veda, right? Vaidya dharma, right? Then we have Swadharma, right? In which we have Sadharana dharma, Vishesha dharma, and Apada dharma. What it means is, in a Samanya dharma or Sadharana dharma, Samanya dharma is a better word there, right? In Samanya dharma, it is ahimsa is paramo dharma. But in a war, I cannot be having ahimsa. I have to do the himsa. There, the Vishesha dharma will take over. It will say that, no, it is not ahimsa, it is the fighting the war with dharmic intent is the dharma. So it becomes Vishesha dharma will take over the Samanya dharma. Apada dharma is where apada is a very common Hindi word even today. In times of calamity, you can even overlook both of them. Right. So that is the extent to which our Dharma Shastras have classified or have tried to delve into. Right. Similarly, with respect to Dambadhya, we have Pati Dharma, Patni Dharma, as well as Putra or Santana Dharma. Right? We generally use Santana Dharma, but it is also called as Putra Dharma. With respect to arts and science, we have Jyotisha Dharma, Kala Dharma, Chitra Dharma, Sangeeta Dharma, and it was so beautiful. We have Natya Dharma for drama as well as stage, and Nritya Dharma for dance. So it is so very beautifully and so very elaborately thought through. That is why our scriptures are like going amazingly to a great height. The most important thing that I want to talk about is called as Chor Dharma. For thief, there is a dharma, right? And in fact, the say Sthena Nam Pataye Namo Namo is the way the Rudra will go, where Lord Shiva is praised as the Lord of thieves. So even that is part of dharma, but it is a Nishiddha karma as well. And similarly, Paradharma, if I am supposed to be doing this duty, and instead of that, I'm doing someone else's duty, it is called as paradharma. Even that is considered to be nishiddham. So this is the extent to which we can think of dharma. And I hope it brings about a clarity in terms of how to see the term dharma. We are going to be using dharma a lot in Bhagavad Gita. And hence I thought this introduction was very, very valid. Going further, let us take the term Yuddha Dharma. War is not a choice of any human, but conflicts are inevitable. Fighting a war to possess, conquer, enslave, we only commit a sin in those cases. Whether there is weapon involved or not, whether there is death involved or not, whether there is destruction involved or not, the war continues to exist. It will exist within you. It will exist within the place that you are in terms of your friends, in terms of your relatives. There will always be conflicts. There is no escape to that. Righteousness or the dharma is in defining the rules of that warfare and engagement and adherence to that. And that is what we do. Even in the organization, what we set up are basic rules in terms of what are all the protocols that needs to be followed for a specific work and so on and so forth. So that is what makes the dharma to come about. So every kind of protocol that you create is dharma. In Mahabharata War 2, this Yuddha Dharma was established. War will happen only from dawn to dusk. Many should not join to fight one. Two fighting should be on the same plane using equal weaponry only. For example, one in horse should not fight with one on the ground. One with a mace should not fight with one having a bow and arrow. If anyone surrenders, one should not fight with them. If anyone loses the weapon, others should not attack and allow the other person to recover the weapon. Anyone running away from the battlefield should not be attacked. Weapon-based fighting rules should not be violated. Right? For example, when fighting with a mace, you can only attack above the hip. Right? So that is the rule of that particular fight. So that also needs to be followed. All these were agreed upon before the commencement of the war. It was so long as Bhishma Pitama on the command, all these laws were strictly adhered to. Not a single rule was broken. On the 10th day of war, after Bhishma Pitama is, brought down, he didn't die, but he was incapacitated and he was put into a bed of arrows. After that happened, all the rules were broken. And that is the basic thing that we need to understand. If you are in a leadership position, then you need to understand that taking that kind of a command where in my presence no rules can be broken requires a strong resolute from within you to be adhering to the rule and also being so alert to everything happening around and to ensure that it is not going to fail. So effective leadership can be understood by looking at the stories of Bhishma Pitama, all the incidents around Bhishma Pitama and so on. They are big lessons for us to learn. Moving on to the third shloka. Pashyaitam Panduputranam Acharya Mahatim Chamum Vyudam Drupada Putrena Tavasishyena Dhimata. Pashya etan means look at these, the assembled army. Pandu Putranam, of the sons of Pandu. Acharya, teacher. Here are the references to the Dronacharya. Mahatim Chamu, the great military forces. Vyudam, organized in formations. Drupada Putrena, the son of King Drupada. Tava Shishyena, one who is your student. Dhimataha, a very intelligent one at that. Drupada Putra, right? He is considered to be born out of a yajna of King Drupada, in which Draupadi was also born. So brother of Draupadi. Now, what happens is he is born to kill Acharya, Dronacharya. But Dronacharya, knowing that is the purpose of his birth, will train him. That is the Guru Dharma or Acharya Dharma. Just to touch upon the Dharma. Dhimataha is a very intelligent one. So, putting it in an organized manner, O teacher, Acharya, see this great military force, Pashya, Etan Mahatim Chamo, of Pandavas, the sons of Pandu, Panduputranam, in well-organized arrangement, Vyudam, which is led by Drupada Putrena, is Drishtadhyumna, referred to as the son of King Drupad. Dhimatha Shishyena Tavaha, a very intelligent student or disciple of yours. So that is the meaning of this shloka. Here we can look at the wickedness of Duryodhana. Again, we go into the term called as objective versus subjective. Here, the objective is about fighting the war and winning it. But he is going subjective. He is going into the persons behind it. Did you see that person? The wicked person who is very intelligent, right? So that is the way that he is attacking. He knew about the personal enmity between Dronacharya and the king Drupad, right? So here he is trying to incite that personal anger in Dronacharya, right? And Drishtadyumna, he was born of a yajna performed by King Drupada, I told you before. Right. From the fire emerged then, Drona's aware of Drishtadyumna and demonstrated the role of a guru. Right. So Drishtadyumna was appointed as the commander-in-chief of the Pandava forces. He survives the war, but is killed on the night of the 18th day of the war. He was killed unarmed and defenseless while he was sleeping. He was just butchered. So that is how he gets killed. But that is the background about Drishtadyumna. Now, we spoke about commander-in-chief. What is meant by that? The forces in those days were organized in our common words as battalions. They are called as akshauhini. There are several people who use it very swiftly as ashkuni, right? But the real Sanskrit word is akshauhini. The Duryodhana forces, the Kauravas, had 11 akshauhini as opposed to 7 from Pandavas. There are several numbers that float around in terms of what is this number, right? So here is the breakup that has come traditionally to us. But I have seen, if you look up, the Google or today's chat GPT, etc., I'm seeing the numbers from 108,000 to 218,000 and so on. In our tradition, we call it as 251,500. It is made on this basis where one pati or one flight, Prabhakar knows it, that is the term used in the Air Force, right, is made of one chariot, one elephant, 11 patipal or the sepoy, 3 horses, 5 infantry fighters. Put together, this is what a one pati is, right? So a pati is led by a Sena Mukh. Basically, he has 3 patis, and every flight could have a leader, which is Sena Mukhi, but what is it? Not always it is the case. So one Sena Mukh can be responsible for about so many people, right? Now, then it goes up to 3 Sena Mukh, right? So we'll have 1 Kulmam, 3 Kulmam to 1 Ganam, 3 Ganam to 1 Vahini, 3 Vahini to 1 Bridani, 3 Bridani to 1 Sena, 3 Sena to 1 Ani, 10 Ani equals 1 Akshahuni. This is the way that it forms. So if you put that numbers all the way up, it comes to 251,500 people, right? So if you look at it, we are talking of 18 times 251,500 were the total number of forces that fought Mahabharata war. This not only demonstrates the fight, but also the organization capacity. People who are in the forces or even in the business, they know that fighting doesn't happen by itself. There is an entire supply chain behind it. So you're talking in terms of massive capabilities to be put into place for a war of this scale to be held. So that is what is Mahabharata war. Pandava's army, it was led by Drishtadyumna. They had 7 Akshahuni, where Bhima was head of one. He survived the war. King Drupad, that was the father of Drishtadyumna. He led one Akshahuni, right? He was killed by Dronacharya on the 11th day. The remaining forces under King Drupad were merged under Drishtadyumna. So he took direct control over it. King Virat, where Pandavas had taken, the Ajnatavas, where they had hid themselves. King Virat, he was killed on the 15th day. He led one of the Akshuhini. Then he was killed by Dronacharya as well. Again, force was merged under Drishtadyumna. Then King Drishtadyumna, he survived the war. So he was not only the commander-in-chief, but also he commanded one Akshuni of his own. Right. He survived the war, but was killed on the night of the 18th day. Shikandi, he survived the war, but was killed on the 18th day. Satyaki survived the war, but killed on the 18th day, night of the 18th day. And Chekitanan, he was killed on the 16th day by Karna. The forces integrated into the remaining army. It doesn't say under which Akshuni, but by then so much of forces had been lost that it was very easy to accommodate, perhaps, I don't know. But it only speaks about how it got. On the other hand, on the Kaurava army, there is a lot of confusion that existed. For example, Karna was considered to be a Maharathi in charge of one Akshuni, but he was prohibited from fighting under Bhishma's command. So for the first 10 days, he didn't fight. There is no clear identity or clear listing of who were all the heads of those Akshuhini in Mahabharata. We know the commander-in-chief. First 10 days, Bhishma Pitama. After he fell, 11 to 13 days, Dronacharya, killed by Arjuna. 14 to 17 days, Karna, killed by Arjuna. So now we can see what is the kind of role that Arjuna played in terms of putting all the 3 commander-in-chiefs. On the 18th day, it was Shalya who took the commander-in-chief's position. He died on the 18th day, and he was killed by Yudhishthira. It was a duel in which he was killed. Right. Then Ashwathama, he took over, the son of Dronacharya. Then we know Ashwathama is a Chiranjeevi. He doesn't die. He survives the war. But we know the rest of the story. But Ashwathama, he took over the commander-in-chief position. This is what happened with respect to the war on the with respect to how the war took place, who led, and so on. So when we are talking in terms of who or how the war was fought, I think it is important we understand that these are all the main forces. This is the size of it, and you can put your own thoughts in terms of the greatness of Mahabharata. We will start with the 4th shloka and close it today without going into the meaning. Shloka number 4. Atra shura maheshvasa bhimarjuna samayudhi yuyudhano viratascha drupadascha maharatha. So here we are talking in terms of the great names that are being spoken, and we will take a look at each of them in our next class. So coming back to the Q&As, we will start with Prabhakar. Prabha, are you still there, Prabha? Jyoti ji?
Namaste, Nashji. Nashji, I don't have any question.
Okay, Shyam Bhaiya is there?
Sham Bhaiya is traveling this week.
Oh, yeah.
He's here,
You
yeah.
just told me, I forgot. Yep, yep.
Yeah,
Sorry.
koi baat nahi. Koi baat.
Sorry, to go on unmute, it took some time for me. No questions. Going is good. Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you.
Did this answer your questions on dharma? Does it make things more clearer to you?
Actually, I'm able to relate to the earlier discussion also.
Awesome.
Especially the three parts which where you said situational, or the three dharmas. One is apada dharma, one is
Samanya dharma and Vishesha dharma.
samanya dharma, and apada dharma, and between there is one which is
Vishesha dharma. Yeah,
Vishesha dharma, special dharma.
correct.
So, that we may have to deep dive a little later.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Cool. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Ravi Bhaiya?
No question, Uncle Ji. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bhaiya. Chalo. Okay, then we will call it a day today, and we will connect again next week. Hari Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnad Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.